Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us today. We are actually really busy in the office today, so unfortunately not able to do a live stream for you. So we don't let you down, we've actually recorded something for you to watch, so I hope you enjoy it. We're having a little think towards Mother's Day for those sort of contemporary mums that don't really want something that's too traditional. So we're going to concentrate on doing something a bit more contemporary, a bit modern in its style. Hopefully you'll find that a little bit more interesting as well. So keep watching, and we are going to use the following flowers. We have these beautiful calla lilies. Now this one is called Captain Promise. It has a really lovely, well, you can't really call it purple, you can't call it red, and you can't really call it pink. So it kind of blends beautifully with those hot warm jewel tones. Has a lovely green outer stripe to the back usually, as you can see. So a really good colour mix that works really well as a flower to blend other colours together. So that's our Captain Promise. We've got some cerise carnations here. Now, carnations tend to come in really tight buds, especially if they're the Colombian ones. So they come with quite a nice tight bloom. It doesn't overly look appealing when it's in that kind of shape. So to get them to look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, just nip the calyx gently. Sounds very cruel, but it's not going to harm it. And then gently fluff the carnation out. So as you twist the bloom, fluff the petals, and there you have a much more recognised carnation shape, much more aesthetically pleasing. Okay, then we have this rose, which is actually a new one to us. It's really lovely. It's called Lilac Wonder. You can see it's got the sort of format of almost a garden style rose. It's not a garden style, but you can see it's got that multi-petalled, almost peony-esque centre to it. So hopefully that's going to be a really popular one for the weddings this year. It has a real vintage appearance to the outer guard petals, which are sort of green and almost a red tone actually. So a real mix, that one. So that's Lilac Wonder. Then we have our chrysanthemum blooms. This one's Anastasia Dark Green. And then we have Salix Willow or Pussy Willow. Lovely grey, silver tone to that. And as you can see, it's very tactile, Pussy Willow, so it gives you a nice texture. Then we have Liatris, purple Liatris, and finally our bear grass. So they're all our fresh products that we're going to use. And then for our toolkit and our accessories, I'm just going to move that bear grass out of the way so you can see what I'm talking about. We've got this really funky aspidistra ribbon. I've used this before on previous live streams, so you can see it's quite popular. It's a really good price, $6.98 plus VAT on our website, and I think you get 50 yards. Yeah, so it's a really good opportunity to use it for this style arrangement if you don't want to use a fresh aspidistra, because once you've put it into the glass vase, you can't actually tell that it's not fresh. The problem you have if you line a vase with a fresh aspidistra is obviously you're going to get decomposition occurring, and it's going to start to make the water go a bit yucky. So by using that, you're going to avoid that. I've got a lovely long glass trough here, excuse me, which I've lined, or I've placed Oasis in. I've got my trusty scissors, my rose thorn stripper, and some wires. So I've placed a brick and a half of Oasis in the glass trough. I'm now going to line it with the aspidistra ribbon. So just measuring up how much I need. Slight overlap. Just trim that so it fits. And it doesn't really matter which side of the ribbon that you use as the correct side, because as you can see, pretty much looks the same, and neither one side or the other is more shiny, so it really doesn't matter. And then I'm just sliding that behind the Oasis. There you have it. Just covers up the glass a little bit, so you can see through quite happily. Right, so I'm going to start with my pussy willow, and I want this all to be exactly the same length. So I'm actually going to cut it from the bunch at exactly the same height. Now I'm not going to throw away these end pieces because we can use those for something else later. And then just keeping these nice and straight, placing those all the way along the back of the arrangement so that they're all parallel with each other. And obviously, depending on how close you place them, I'll pop another one in that end, will depend on the style of background to the arrangement that you get. So the closer and more dense you place them, the more of almost like a backdrop you get to the arrangement. So that's our start with our pussy willow. Then I'm going to add the liatris. Now the theme of this arrangement is very much linear, so keeping everything upright and in groups. So again, I'm going to keep all the liatris roughly the same height. So again, going to cut it at all the same height. Sorry, that was my bucket of rubbish. And then place those in a little group to the left-hand side of the arrangement, keeping them nice and tightly grouped together. Now liatris is really nice used in modern arrangements because it has that contemporary feel to it, with it being very straight, tall, structured. It works very well in linear and contemporary styled arrangements. I've actually used the whole, or I'm going to use the whole 10 stems here. There we go. So that's our liatris in position. So now I'm going to add my calla lilies. These rather scrumptious calla lilies. So I'm going to start with one nice and tall. Again, keeping to roughly a linear feel to the arrangement. It will stand where I put it. And then just pays just to keep an eye to the blooms that you're using. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've started up high with the smallest bloom and then gradually come down in sizes. This is the biggest one, so I'm going to use that at the very base. That's the next size up, so I'm going to use that slightly up from there. So popping that one in at the very base, gently teasing it to open it up a bit more than it already is, and then popping the last one just behind. So you can see how we get that lovely grouping going on there. Just get rid of those. Then we're going to pop in one of my green Anastasia chrysanthemums. I'm just removing the leaves from that, just so that the leaves don't interfere with the line and the cleanliness of the texture and shape of the arrangement. And that one's going in there. And then I'm going to pop a couple down at the bottom here, to the left hand side. And grouping those, again removing all of the foliage. get rid of those empty old stems. And next I'm going to bring my roses in. Now I'm actually going to remove the majority of the outer guard petals on these, simply because I prefer on this occasion to see more of the lilac colour of the rose rather than the outer guard petals, which have a bit of a red and green feel to them. Now I'm just to illustrate what a difference removing the guard petals make to the rose, I'll just show you. Almost completely changed the colouring. As you can see, you've got very much a red colour tone there, and most definitely pink lilac there. And literally all I've done is just remove the outer guard petals. Okay. Just shows how you can change the look of a rose. Also makes them so much more usable because you can blend them with several different colour palettes. So I'm just going to pop the roses into the oasis, cutting the stem at an angle and slitting the stem up just to expose more cell structure to the oasis. It helps them just to develop a little bit better. And again, selecting the smallest through to the largest. And this is quite a large one, so that's going near the bottom. Now, having removed the outer guard petals, you can see how beautifully the Lilac Wonder works with the calla lilies. As with the red tone, got a slight colour difference going on there. And then just placing the last two Lilac Wonder at the base of the arrangement. And then finally, just got my carnations, which again I'm just going to fluff up as we place those into the arrangement, just at the very base. And obviously by fluffing them, you also get, they'll take up a slightly bigger surface area. I'm cutting them at an angle, and I'm also making sure that when I cut the carnation, I'm actually cutting them above a node. I'll show you what I mean by that. So with the carnation, you get like a little joint. If you cut there, the water's got that almost obstacle to get up before it can then run the whole way up the stem to supply the whole flower. If you cut above the node, you get almost like a free run for the water to run up the stem to rehydrate the flower. So whenever you're conditioning or arranging with carnations, just bear those little nodes in mind and always cut above them, so you've got that nice piece of stem for the water to drink up. Adding those in. Tucking those all the way along, just to give almost like a little blanket, if you like, to the base of the arrangement. Cutting them at a nice sharp angle so they go into the oasis quite happily. And then my last one, just popping in there. Okay, then to finish with, I'm just going to place some little bits of bear grass. Some little loops. So cutting the bear grass at a nice sharp angle so it will actually fit into the oasis. And then I'm placing 3 pieces in. bringing those loops round, cutting them to where I want them to go in, and just using a wire. I'm just going to do a single leg mount as we've done previously, so the long part of the wire around the short part, bending the wire up to give a little bit more anchorage into the oasis, and then popping that into the arrangement. And then just to add a couple of tails, to the outside of the arrangement, just popping those in. At that end, just trim that a bit shorter, and then the same this end as well. Now finally, with our last little pieces of pussy willow that we had left over, just so we don't waste those, I'm cutting the stem so that you get a nice soft piece of pussy willow bloom at the end, so you've got no sharp sticks at the end. Cutting those. Not going to use all of them, but just to show you what you can do so they're not wasted. I'm just going to pop those in here. Just a little tiny group, just to reinforce the pussy willow colour. Turning them round so you can't see the sharp end of the wood. So there we have our contemporary styled arrangement, suitable for, well, not only Mother's Day, but any occasion really where you want something tall and slender, perhaps to go on a windowsill or a mantelpiece or something like that. Now it is front facing, however you could do it as an all-round style if you wanted to. Just make sure that you do fill in the back if you're actually going to view it from 360 degrees. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's given you some inspiration, and do please join us again. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.